and where you spend it and how you spend it is just an incredibly levered way to think about the world. And so if you're going to spend time, explaining the stock or the company, really, we don't really explain the stock, we explain the company to people, you should do it to people who are long-term investors rather than traders. That's our point of view.
And what do you say to employees when you obviously have some traders in the stock are not happy and suddenly the stock is down 25% after a quarter?
Well, since 1997, at almost every all-hands meeting, we have 2 all-hands meetings a year. At almost every all-hands meeting, I remind employees that if the stock is up 10% this month, don't feel 10% smarter, because when the stock is down 10% some month, you're going to have to feel 10% dumber, and it's not going to feel as good. And so it's ownership is we give most of our compensation is done in terms of stock compensation, and part and parcel with ownership is a mentality of long-term thinking. Owners think longer term than renters do. So I have a friend who rented his house to some tenants, and instead of getting a Christmas tree stand at Christmas, they just nailed the Christmas tree into the hardwood floors of the house. No owner would ever do that. And but sometimes that's a bad tenant. They're good tenants, but that's a bad tenant, and it's because this is the same old thing about nobody ever washed a rental car. And you take better care of the things that you own, but one of the responsibilities of ownership, and definitely deep inside the Amazon culture, is to think about the fundamentals of the business and not the daily fluctuations in the stock price. There's no information in it.
More than pretty much any other company I've ever seen, since the dawn of Amazon, you've had a chorus of doomsayers and doubters. You're going to go out of business. Famously, in the 1990s, you were supposed to be broke any month now, so forth. Now, the story is, well, the growth is slowing, the stock is going down. At Amazon, they pay everybody with stock. They have such low salaries. There's just going to be an exodus now that the stock is moving sideways. How do you, again, have your employees feel like, I should stay here instead of the 900 other places that I could work? Because over the long haul,
you got to be somewhat quantitative about this. I mean, I went through, I think that when the internet bubble burst, the stock went from $113 a share to somewhere around $6.
Bingo.
And so
I remember.
Now to me, that is a stock movement. So what people are talking about now is the stock. I think if you look at our stock price over a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, it all looks pretty good. I mean, people. So it's just not quantitatively. Our stock is well within. It's a volatile stock. It always has been. It probably will be for We're we're a large company, but in many ways, because of all of our emerging businesses, we're also still a startup, and there's just a lot of volatility in startups.
If you go to Silicon Valley now, where they're competing fiercely for talent, it's basically like any company you go into, like a Disney cruise. They have the sushi chefs and the free this and the massages and all that stuff. I visited Amazon last year. I was startled to see that you make employees pay for lunch. It seems such an archaic concept. Famously frugal, low salaries, and everything else.
Yeah,
How do you do that? How do you get people to work for you?
If you ever talking to some college student who you really care about, maybe a niece or a nephew, you should definitely advise them the best way to pick your job is who has the best massages.
It seems to work.
That'll be great advice. You'll really lead them in the right direction for the rest of their career. Well, first of all, I'll give you some examples. We do have some very significant benefits at Amazon, besides compensation and restricted stock units and so on and so on. For example, we have an urban campus. It's way more expensive. We could save a lot of money by moving to the suburbs of Seattle, and we have chosen instead to build an urban campus. And I think it's a spectacular benefit for our employees. I think it's one that they appreciate much more than free massages. And I'll give you some startling statistics. 15% of our employees at headquarters live in the same zip code where they work. 20% of our employees walk to work. So an urban campus is so much greener than a suburban campus because people are driving and parking and fighting traffic as much. And it's also just way more vibrant, which I personally believe also helps Amazon because it keeps people connected with this vibrant urban area. They're not insulated. You know, we have an unbelievable food truck scene around our headquarters. It's out of control, actually, how many, and if everybody just came in and had, you know, Amazon authorized food, and you know, there would be no food truck scene. There would be no vibrancy, there would be no connection. So we have windows that open in our buildings. That's unbelievable. Hard to do. Trust, I mean, it's really hard to do. You have to work at it. The HVAC people hate it. They're like, no, you can't open the windows. Then people say,